Welcome to the Driveline Baseball Podcast. We're talking about the MLB Draft, including who went 1-1 and new automated balls and strikes.
Yeah. So I think people don't know that that's how it works.
What do you think are the biggest misconceptions of the draft?
That it works like every other draft, which is a fair thing.
Mm-hmm.
In football, whenever you trade picks, can't do that in baseball, except for the comp round, small, thing. And that you're drafted, and then there's like a contract attached to you, and that it's a hard number.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it is in all the other sports.
It's just like, I got picked 9th, so This is the money I get.
Yep, that's right. I get the 4-year rookie contract in the NBA. I get this and this or whatever. Now, in baseball, you get the 6-year rookie contract, minor league contract.
Yeah.
Or 5 if you're college. And then your bonuses is whatever. Good example of that is Kierstad being drafted first overall and getting $4 million on her slot.
Yep.
So they didn't think Kierstad was the best player. They just thought it was the best strategy for allocating their draft bonus pool, which is also not a thing in other sports. So, yeah, the draft is best seen as a holistic thing in baseball. All your players, rather than we take all the best players, and the best player was taken first, the worst player was taken last, based on evaluations, and then, people like Isaiah Thomas and basketball take it last and be like, I made it, I'm Mr. Irrelevant. It's like, well, in baseball, it's not always the case that a worse player is drafted after the first. Like, it doesn't work that way.
What do you mean by that? Just that, like, you're looking at like a basket of picks?
Commodities. Yeah. So that's how the teams approach it. Plus, they have the apron. So after the 10th round, you can take players and pay them more and all that other. It's all just a bunch of stuff in baseball rules that make it weird. 9th rounders are getting $2 million in baseball. Yeah, it's just not really a thing in the other sports.
Yeah. So what's the strategy, or some of the stuff that you were talking about like trying to get a kid to like float down the draft board to you? Like how do you try to manipulate that or manage it as a team?
I think if the first thing, if I'm a GM or an owner, we have $18 million to spend in the pool. That's our pool. You better spend $18 million exactly. Or $18 million with the 5% overage where you don't get penalized. You need to spend all the money, because every dollar spent in the draft is worth, I don't know, I think it's like 6x or something like that. Something like that. It's every dollar you spend in the draft returns a huge return on investment. So we better spend all of it.
And if you don't use it, you don't get it back. It doesn't roll over. You get forced.
You get nothing. You just save a couple bucks. But if you're an owner and you can put $1 in their machine and get $6 back, you better spend all the dollars. You better put all the dollars into the machine. And of course, almost every team acts this way. Every team acts this way. When they don't spend all their money, it's due to a screw up. It's not them being like, oh, we saved $500,000. Like, no one is actually hoping for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like a kid said he would sign for an amount of money, then he didn't, or medicals are bad, or a combo draft strategy didn't work. It's just due to a screw up or something messed up. No one's actually trying to save money in the draft. Everyone.
What's a combo draft strategy that would mess up?
It's not allowed technically, of course, but I mean, it happens all the time. Like, you take a college.
Well, but it's like a strategy, right?
Yeah, you talk to a high school kid. Well, he's like, I'm not going to sign for less than $2 million. Therefore, I'm going to school if I'm going to get drafted in the top 10 picks. And you're like, hey, we'll take you with the 50th pick, maybe, and we'll give you the money as long as you hold true to that.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll draft a college player, that will take $2 million on their slot, and then you go take the high school kid. And then that's the Kierstad idea. And then the original, of course, the way that blew up originally was the Astros taking Mark Appel, and then Mac Marshall and Brady Aiken. Or not Mark Appel, sorry. This was the Brady Aiken, Mac Marshall.
Jacob Nix
deal.
Yes.
When Brady wouldn't.
What was that?
Aiken wouldn't sign for the money after the medical. And then because he wouldn't sign, they lost the entire pool, which means the money they promised Nix and Marshall wasn't available without getting penalized. So then they didn't get signed, even though they both wanted to. Then Nix sued the Astros and won, and then got money for that, for compensation, then got to be drafted the next year and got a full bonus, which was pretty cool for him.
Interesting.
And then Marshall went to college. He wasn't that mad. Like, Mac was always potentially going to go to school. So yeah, that's like when you have this basket strategy, but they can blow up in your face because like one player can have leverage over the entire pool now.
Yep.
And then that's the trouble when you have a small draft pool, which is like the Astros' penalty for cheating has been vacating their picks, which is bad enough, but then even worse is that they lose the corresponding bonus pool money. So then they have like 4 million or 5 million in the draft. Meanwhile, like Cleveland has like 16 million.
Yeah.
So then if you have 4 million, how could you draft a high school kid? Because he can just leverage your small pool against you. It's like, oh, I'll sign for like whatever million, and then you draft him, and then suddenly he changes his mind and he wants 2.5.
Mm-hmm.
But then that's over 50% of your pool.
Yeah.
But then what are you going to say? No? Like, it's just like, it sucks. It puts you in a really tough position. So people don't understand how tough the penalties are that the Astros have been facing. It's a tough look for the league. Or not for the league, it's just they see this penalty as not being a big thing, but it actually has really inhibited their ability to draft players, and it's reflected in their farm system as very bad now. So
Interesting. Are there other strategies that are like less known to the casual like NBA, NFL, whatever observer of the draft? Because you would think like you said, it's just like best player goes first, second best player goes second, or you're like drafting for like team need. You get the Mel Kiper Jr. thing. It's like, we need a shortstop.
That's right. Biggest need. Drafting a college senior, giving him $2,500, and then saving on the pool and then using it on someone else.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen in other sports. So that's kind of weird. They take like a college senior with like a 5 ERA in the 5th round. What is this?
Yeah.
He stinks. And then
Yeah.
take a high school kid and pay him like $1 bazillion a couple of rounds later. They don't connect that they're related, because like, why would they? In every other draft, it doesn't work that way. So that's just how it is sometimes. I think a second rounder was taken once and got like $2,500. I can't remember when, but I think it was a couple years ago or something like that. It was like an egregious pick or something like that. I don't remember.
Why'd you do that in the second round when you could just do it?
I think they went over slot twice or something like the first and third round were going to be both over slot.
Got it.
And they just like had to rip a ton of. I think they ripped like 6 $2,500 signees in the first 10 rounds.
There we go.
I remember it happened.
Any of them work out?
I don't
It's like, obviously you're looking for the guy there that has something you think you could develop.
Yeah,
Maybe their usage is bad, but like their fastball shape is good.
I mean,
You can like add a pitch.
for the $2,500 guy.
Yeah.
Primarily, the biggest thing is like, will he sign for $2,500? That's the primary thing you're looking for.
Why 2,500? Why not just $1?
I don't know. I think
I don't understand how that's become the standard.
some orgs just don't do it. They don't sign guys for $1. Like they're just like a minimum.
Yeah,
Even their non-drafted free agents will get like like they get $5,000.
that makes sense. You do want them to be a productive employee.
Yeah, it's just whatever. Like to them, it's no different. So they're just like, here's the steady thing. What's the difference between someone for $5,000 and someone for $1? And like, if that causes one argument 1 out of 10 times, it's already not worth it. It's just already not worth the labor strife at that scale. Must be nice to have that money, but
So what was the other draft strategy that you were talking about?
Other draft strategies. You want to make sure that you have a wide variety of service time, like the curve. You don't want all your players getting to the big leagues at the same time.
You mean like all high school kids or all probably more like advanced college kids?
Yeah, international. It matters in the international draft too, or international. It will be the international draft at some point, but in the signing period, because it's becoming more common in the international period to be signing pitchers that are 18. Like just because they did in J2 doesn't mean that. And J2 is for those July 2nd, although it's something else now, but still everyone calls it J2. You sign the 15, 16-year-old kid, and like it used to be all that, but now it's become much more common to find pitchers that are 18, even 19 years old in the Dominican Republic, because they either were injured at a younger age or they weren't good enough to sign at 16 and they don't go to junior college. Like they just stay in the Dominican and train because the training facilities have gotten significantly better, and they don't want to leave home, all these totally normal things. And then you start to see players sign for a decent amount of money at age 18 in the Dominican, which when Framber Valdez signed, at age 19 or 20, like that was crazy. It was just like, oh, he's a fill-in. And obviously the Astros, did pretty good work developing him, and Framber did too. But it used to be, oh, we need someone to fill in the DSL. We'll sign these 18-year-old kids. They'll fill in and then we release them.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're actually seeing 18-year-olds sign that are pretty darn good and get a decent amount of money. Out of the Dominican. So then you have to factor that in, because it used to be all your IFAs were 16 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're 18 and 16 and 20. So you have to make sure you have a good, again, it's not the primary concern, but you really want to avoid getting crushed in the Rule 5 drafts. You want to get, when all your players become Rule 5 eligible and maybe they're not good enough to be on the 40-man, it's really tough. And then you have to expose these guys to the Rule 5 draft, and that's hard. And that leads to teams trading players for 80 cents on the dollar so they can avoid this crunch. And the Padres are probably a good example of that when they've traded for Soto, but then also the deal to Tampa when they traded a bunch of players there for Blake Snell.
Isn't that partially just an ownership mandate too? Which like if you're just filling your roster with like expensive free agents, then that like screws up your timeline, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you want control. You want cost control if you're an owner too. You want like, hey, our payroll's going to be $80 million, and then we're going to go for it, and we're going to spend $210 million the next year. Probably understandably, the ownership group is like, can that be like 80, 120, 160? Can we can I not have a capital call for $130 million in 1 year? Which is probably a very reasonable thing.
How does control work with all these different types of players? Like between like the international guy, drafting high school, college guy, signing a college guy as a free agent.
So what people forget or don't know is that there used to be a loophole. You could sign players in the international period and then have them debut in the Venezuelan Winter League, and you would get an extra year of control because they didn't technically get rostered until the next year. Like, it was this whole loophole. One of many reasons the Venezuelan Winter League no longer exists, because you have to roster them. So if you roster them in the DSL, as a result, like they count for that year that you draft them. So then you get 6 or 7 years of control of them. But then if you roster them in Venezuela when the league doesn't start until after the World Series, it technically is until the next, what they call championship year.
Yeah.
So then you actually get another year of control. Anyway, this loophole's long been closed, but it's very funny.
That is funny.
Not to the players probably, but if you're a high school or I think under 18, it's 6 or 7 years of minor league control. If you're college, it's 6 or 5. I think it's 7 years of control, 6 years to Rule 5 if you're under 18. And if you're college, it's 6 years of control, 5 years to Rule 5, something like that. So you need to make sure, that you're, and not all college players are created equal, of course. So if you have an advanced player that's 22 and is maybe a college senior and is as good as he's going to be, if he gets to the big leagues, it'll happen probably fairly quickly. So you need to make sure, okay, how do we split up the ages? And again, you're still always going to take the best player first. That's going to be the largest weight, but you really don't want to have a glut of a certain type of asset class or, of age, because the old adage is true, and Dombrowski always says it, Dave Dombrowski, about, and Dayton Moore and all these guys say, how expensive it is to acquire free agent pitching. And it just is true. It's the hardest thing it's the thing you have to pay the most for at the trade deadline. Or not free agents, sorry, trading, and free agency too. But premier starting pitching is insanely expensive at any time. So you want to make sure you don't have too many bats and so forth. So it's this whole balancing act. It's a big logistics thing. I mean, Doug Fearing has written about it a million times, right? The ex-director of R&D of the Dodgers, now Zealous Analytics. But before all that, he managed, supply chain management, right? And fleets of trucks. And he wrote operations research papers on how to best allocate assets. And it turns out that that's very applicable to baseball.
Because you're trying to get a portfolio of folks, so pitchers and hitters, to the big leagues, on time, essentially.
Yep.
Or loosely on time.
Yeah. And it helps you with trades too, because as your farm system is in a certain spot with a certain maturity and whatever, which tranches you can trade from without too much impact. Or when you trade for this tranche, you have this impact to your future roster. So if we trade for this tranche in 2024, it impacts 2027's class. Therefore, in the 2025 draft, we should maybe draft more more ready players. Or if we trade younger players, we need to replenish with more younger players. Then the draft becomes an asset allocation exercise. Again, these are all kind of secondary concerns to the main one, which is let's get the best player.
Yep.
But they nevertheless are important, because you do see orgs screw this up, whether it's intentionally or accidentally. They do screw up this asset allocation and then end up with a Rule 5 crush, or they end up in a spot more brutally. There's worse things than being too rich, which is a Rule 5 crush. The other part is when you go to blow up your roster and you look at your farm system and you're in a period of zero talent. So your peak was at a certain point, and now your trough is your trough is at a point where you're trying to rebuild, which is a really bad place to be. So your talent is extremely poor for the next X years, or your talent's ready now, and you're going to blow up the organization. It's even worse. So you have all these MLB ready assets in AA and AAA, and then you're but our major league roster is expensive and bad. So it's but if we sell off, then we put these guys in the big leagues, then we win 70 games. So it's like really bad. Like if you're gonna blow up your roster, you want all your best talent to be 18 years old.
Yep.
And so like this has happened many times to teams and can come up with a lot. Then it's hard for ownership to spend money because like what cycle do they want to do it on? And
Yep.
Yeah. So these are all things that are complicated, but that are understandable, and it's why like the director of it's basically the job of the director of baseball operations to handle that. Someone that understands contracts, arbitration, economics. Like that person is generally in charge of these things.
Yep.
And they provide reports to the GM to be like, hey, here's the health of the system, here's the cadence, and in all the organizations I've worked at, and you've seen also, like we've both seen that approach. There's many different ways to go about it. You can quantitatively do it, or you can do it by feel. But make no mistake, people have been doing it, and ever since Branch Rickey, on how to do that.
Speaking of the draft, we've got, Travis Bazzana, who was here multiple summers, just went first overall to the Guardians. Tanner, you worked with him very closely.
Mm-hmm.
I worked with him really closely.
Yep.
What were some of the things that stood out to you in his sort of journey? Because he wasn't a consensus top 5 pick going into Oregon State.
Yeah, so like to start with Travis, like the work ethic is like incredibly high level. He's like really, really, really intelligent hitter. He really understands the technology and the information, the data, understands how his body moves. He's really good at interpreting information in live time or in real time and making adjustments with like that live feedback. But the guy is just different. Like as far as the commitment, dedication to his craft, what he's working on, he's up there in the same tier as Otani. As far as like all the guys I've worked with, it's like those two are basically second to none as far as like the commitment to what they're doing and like the level of understanding and what they need to do to get where they want to get to. Those guys are in their own stratosphere.
But we
self-aware.
Drive 4 hours to hit. I remember just on a Monday, and I was like, is that the bad man? And I walked over and I was like, oh, I guess school's out. It was like winter. It was before the season started. I was like, oh, I guess school's not in session. And I was like, it's February. Like, this class is for sure. And then he's like, yeah, no, I'm just trying to get ready, man. And I think he played some games actually. Like
it happened twice during the season.
Yeah, and I was just like,
once early on he came.
That drive sucks for anyone who doesn't know. By the way, Seattle to Corvallis sucks. Not only is it 4, now it's 4.
Dude, it's not 4 hours.
You hit a bunch of traffic going through.
It's 6.
You hit traffic getting.
It's 6.
It's 4.5 if you're super lucky. But not only is it long, it's like, dude, the drive between Portland and Corvallis, there is nothing, dude. I've made that drive out many times. It stinks.
Made it on Sunday when it's a draft party. It is nothing.
Right when you get off that highway, the drive to Corvallis, it's like, oh, I'm off the highway. 40 more minutes, dog.
You're almost. You got that gas station right there.
Yeah, that's right.
And then it's nothing.
Yeah, it's absolutely not. That's the last.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
So anyway,
God's country.
That's my contribution.
But yeah, we obviously put out a bunch of content around Bazzana. But like the really cool part about his story and like my first interaction with him / his agent, O'Hagan. O'Hagan called going into summer 2022. Said with the new CBA, like the international draft rules got changed, so he had an extra year where he had to be at Oregon State.
Mm-hmm.
And O'Hagan was like, "Hey, we got this guy," and I thought this was ridiculous at the time because we got this guy, and like you're gonna love him. You're gonna want to hire this guy right after you start talking. I'm like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? He's like, you're gonna want to hire this kid, 19 years old. He's gonna be perfect. You're gonna love him. And he's like, yeah, so he's at Oregon State. He's a freshman All-American. He just absolutely raked in the West Coast League before this season. He's really good bat-to-ball skills, good swing decisions. He's fast as hell. He's a burner. He just needs some more impact, right? Like he wants to hit for more power. He was going to go to the Cape, but with the draft rules changing, he's going to want to train. I'm like, this is probably dumb, and in most cases, I've always believed that going to play summer ball is not the move for most people unless you're going to play in the Cape.
Yeah.
So my first reaction was like, this is probably not the right idea, and I was very wrong. So he spent that whole summer here developing. Like the focus was obviously looking to gain bat speed, hit for more power, but like really quickly we found through biomechanics assessment that he just moved really poorly, had really inefficient swing mechanics. So did a lot of stuff focusing on his posture, trying to flatten out his bat path a little bit so he can cover high fastballs a little bit better. And in turn, like Obviously, he put on a bunch of muscle mass, added strength, power, cleaned up his mechanics, had a very good sophomore year. Came in right before the Cape, ended up going to the Cape after that season. Came in after that, trained all fall, came in that winter, and he developed himself into being the number 1 draft pick.
Yeah.
Cape MVP.
Cape MVP.
How does someone with I forget what you called them, inconsistent or whatever, inefficient
mechanics.
How does someone with inefficient mechanics be freshman All-American? And like, I think that year in the West Coast League, you hit like 400 with a wood bat, right? So like
460, something like that.
So how square those things for me.
Yeah, he just has like insanely good bat to ball skills. He's just got insane ability to control the barrel. When he swings, he's making contact. Like, the issue more or less was his contact quality, right? Like, if he's trying to pull a ball, he was constantly top spinning balls. His best hit balls were hit really high because his attack angle was way too high. And that was the thing that's basically tied into his posture issues. So like with that, like, we took a guy who just like has innate ability to make contact and basically increase the margin for error in his bat path by basically getting him to match pitch planes longer.
Yeah.
So like that helped him to not only make more contact, but make better contact because he's moving more efficiently. He was able to move faster. Obviously, he spent a bunch of time crushing in the weight room, getting stronger and more powerful. But he spent a lot of times after he started to clean up the mechanics, the focus shifted towards like improving pull side contact quality, learning to pull the ball in the air and do damage that way. And if you haven't watched Bazzana highlights from this season, he just fucking hammered balls pull side all year long.
He did.
I think he had something like between like 15 and 20 home runs to the pull side. But yeah, he's just a guy that had like the natural ability. I don't even know if I'd call it natural because he spent a lot of time training and growing up, but he just had this insane ability to make contact. Just more or less had like a pretty small margin for error because his bat path was more or less fucked up because the attack angle was too high. So changing that, increasing that margin for error made it easier for him to continue making quality contact while hitting the ball harder and a hell of a lot further.
I looked into it real quick about his J2 signability. For those who don't know, Australia is not part of the Major League Draft. So players can sign out of there at age 16.
Yeah.
Curtis Mead, for example. And often they do for a lot of money. But I asked Bazzana, and I looked into it, I talked to some scouts, and he was not a big J2 target. He probably would have been, I think there were like 3 or 4 orgs interested, and cap would have been 100,000. So we're not talking about a super elite athlete at the time. You know, like,
well, yeah, because he
was good, but it was just like, you know, he had to get a lot better.
You ran into him 2 years ago or whatever when he first came in to like start training.
Yep.
Directly, but we tested him in Arizona when we were doing some work for Team Australia.
Yeah, and I was there.
Were you there that day?
Yeah, that was when I was back coaching Arizona Christian.
Yeah.
Oh, you were helping out.
Yeah, and Jason was like, "Hey, we're gonna be here. You want to come help out?" I was like, "Hell yeah, I'll go over there." And
that's so funny. I knew you weren't working.
I didn't find out Bazzana was there until this past winter. We got dinner. I got dinner right before he went back to school.
Yeah.
And we were talking about that. We were talking about him setting his goals when he was younger. It's funny. We were at the draft party on Sunday. I was talking to his dad. He's still got this like piece of cardboard on his wall with like all these random goals he wants to hit. It's like shit crossed out and then like the next goal. So like his whole life he's been like very goal oriented and driven to achieve these because he's hyper competitive. So yeah. But
the interesting thing is I went and pulled all the data from that assessment, and it's like, you know, it's 16 kids who were, I think they were 16 at the time. I think it was the 16U team or it might have been the 18U team, but it was like the junior national team basically. Like number two in top 8th exit velocity, Curtis Mead.
Yeah, Mead raked.
Absolute dead last is Bazzana.
Was he really?
Dead last out of 16 Australians.
I remember Mead wasn't even the best prospect on that team either. Obviously, he was top 3, but there was an outfielder. But I remember that. I don't remember Bazzana at all, which is funny because when I caught up with Bazzana before the draft, we were just talking, like 2-hour conversation about life and whatever. And he was like, I was like, you were there? He's like, yeah, it was awful. And
yeah,
I was like,
he
must have been too, because I barely remember Mead.
He was dead last and all
that happened. He was like, oh, as soon as I can get to the U.S., like I'm training with Driveline. This is exactly what I want to do. This is what I need. This is what's going to help me get
shout out
level.
Glenn Williams, by the way, who enabled that. You know, he asked Willow for the speed trainer, said, can I borrow these or whatever? And Glenn's like, you can just have them.
Yeah,
you know, and Glenn really supported him, so I wanted to make sure I gave Glenn a shout out on that one.
Yeah, but it's interesting because like he's had the barrel awareness, but it just like, you know, enough to get on a national team when you're young. So like there's something there from like an early age.
I wonder if there's something like that with cricket. Obviously, he was a great cricket player.
That's what
Like the role of the hitter, of the batter in cricket is the opposite. It's defensive in many ways.
yes.
Like contact percentage is very important.
Yeah.
So they optimize for that. They don't necessarily optimize for dingers. I mean, like Bradford and some of the elite guys did, but innately, if you can't be a batter and like have swing and miss in your game in cricket, you literally can't. You're terrible. So it's like I wonder if there's something there. Just thought of that now.
He's made a lot of comments about playing cricket growing up. I've never like had the direct conversation around like, hey, this is why your bat to ball skills are good.
Yes,
but he's just made comments in passing a bunch of times about cricket.
Yeah, his high school.
And when we had that cricket player in here a couple years ago,
Robbie Ashley.
He's fanboying over that guy. It was awesome. This guy's a legend.
Deservedly so. He is a legend.
Yeah, and then like he
the third best cricket player.
And this is the thing, that would have been his first summer in here. He's probably a month, 6 weeks or so in here, and he's like immediately wanted to go talk to this cricket player and talk to him about like why this type of training is going to help him in cricket, how it's going to translate, why he should do like bat speed type training. So it was really cool. One, it was really cool for him. He was like really excited about this guy being a legend in here. But also he immediately was like, I can help this guy get better based off the things that I've learned in my short time here.
Yeah. That's funny. I do remember that.
Yep.
We're doing, whatever pitch design work with like I screw up all the cricket terms so frequently. But
we had him we were shooting bouncing smash balls out of the machine, and he was hitting them that way too.
That was on the hitting stuff, but on the pitching side, he was like, spinning the ball pretty good and shooting the edgertronic on it. And it's like, it just goes back to that experience reminded me of like watching guys throw on the edgertronic for the first time ever and watch their brains melt, because they just like see their fingers working for the first time. And then you like start to put stuff together. But I'm curious, you mentioned like his let me bring it back to one question that I had, which is like, you said the swing was inefficient at the beginning and that there were some like postural issues, but like can you describe what the postural issues were and how they led to this like inefficiency, and then how like he cleaned that up over time?
Yeah, like as simply put as possible. Like his postural issues were he had a bunch of forward bend like over the plate at the beginning of his swing. Where he essentially couldn't rotate very effectively
because he's like too hunched over, so he has to stand
a little bit too hunched over. So like when you get into foot plant, he had a bunch of bend. So like his spacing wasn't great. So like his way to like buy time, the compensation to create room was to side bend, like really lean back and hang back. So it causes bat path to be super uphill. So like he'd flush balls to center field really well, hit them high. Just one wasn't hitting the ball hard enough to actually leave the yard to center. Yeah. And then when he would catch the ball further out in front, because his attack angle was so high, he was missing over the plane of so many pitches. So like his hard hit balls with the pull side would just be snap hooked. Yep. He'd hook him foul, hook doubles down the line. He's fast, so like he was able to get away with it. But like to get to the next level and really be productive and do damage, he had to learn how to backspin balls with the pull side of the field. And doing that, at the end of the day, what we were trying to do was flatten out his bat path. One, to cover the high fastball a little bit better because it was something he struggled with. Two, just to be on plane more and like increase that margin for error. Yeah. So like we get him to flatten him out, turn start his like rotation, his torso rotation with less side bend. He was going to be able to enter into the zone a little bit more direct, deeper, to where his barrel was flatter, deeper. So if he caught a ball deep in the zone, he's able to shoot it the other way and hit it hard that way without side spinning it or cutting it foul.
Because if you're steep coming into that, then you just flare it off. Yeah. And it's foul, and that's it. Yeah. As opposed to being able to like smash it and have it stay true to the line.
Yeah, it's like every old school JUCO coach on the planet wants your guys to just hit hard ground balls low the other way. It's like what you're trying to accomplish is just like better posture, flatter path, deeper. Where people like misinterpret is they get like really handsy and pushy. They try to guide the ball that way. Yeah. Rather than like manipulating the point of contact and understanding how that's related to your bat path.
Interesting.
So yeah, the idea was to get him to, at the end of the day, we're trying to get his bat path flatter.
So he was standing hunched.
Yeah, a little bit hunched over, and his move was just like lean back towards the catcher when it was time to swing.
Got it.
And then his bat path was basically straight uphill. Yeah. And he was trying his goal. Like, he knew he needed to pull the ball in the air. He knew he needed to do that to be productive. He was just going about it the wrong way.
So what's the
That's the value in the biomechanics assessment.
Yeah, nice, nice. But yeah, that you do see that stuff clean up, and you can like measure it a little bit. What is part of that? Like his bat when he starts it is like so deep, and he's like fidgeting with it back there.
Mhm.
Like was that related to the posture cleanup? Like he needed
That was
to start.
actually part of his fix for finding the feel on how to be flatter. He just like basically, you got to the point where he's like trying to get to like at foot plant, like that launch position, fully loaded, fully stretched out position. He was just like hit from that position. He just like figured that's essentially where he wanted his barrel, and his ball flight really started to clean up. And then over time, he just blended that into his stance, into like his feel when he's getting into the box.
Yeah. And that's like when he's like doing the thing where he like dips it back or like reaches back.
The idea is just like trying to feel flatter.
Interesting. Feel flatter, not feel like stretched or like loaded or something. It's not like a scap load move.
More so like literally just like bat needs to be flatter, turn deeper. Like a big cue for him is like turn with his hands high.
Yeah.
Because he has a tendency for his hands to either drop, and when that happens, he starts to side bend and get really pushy. Gets disconnected from there. Just like that feel of like getting it flatter, keeping his hands high, and turning high, turning above it is like a huge cue for him.
Do you think that's why guys that are good at hitting like feel like they're coming down on the ball?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's like that feeling of being down. It's like this is like hard to show without like standing up and show you what I'm talking about. Like that thought of being down, it's just like a feeling of being direct into the zone. And like as you rotate, you're naturally going to start to add side bend as you turn. So like if you just stand and don't rotate, and like you see like all the old videos of like A-Rod or Poole, it's just like feeling down like this.
Yeah.
But if you add rotation and have that same feeling, it's pretty flat.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like that idea of like a quote unquote connected turn is where that idea of like swinging down, feeling on top, feeling above the ball comes from. If you're sequencing well and your upper body connection is good, like that down feeling is exactly what is being accomplished.
Interesting. What? Because like anytime someone new comes up with like a swing quirk or whatever, then you see like a million copycats.
Yeah.
You know, so you've got like, you know, I actually remember a kid that I was growing up with who had like down to the cleats and up to the gold chain, like 1-to-1 replica of King Griffey Jr.
Nice.
Swing was exactly identical. And then he like, you know, goes to grip it and rip it. And it's just like infinite flares to the opposite field.
minus 40 miles an hour bat speed.
That's right. Yeah. Minus 40 miles an hour, everything. Run speed, everything. But like, so like, who does that not work for? Like if my son like sees this and is like, I'm gonna copy it because he's left-handed. Like who does like that feel or whatever? Like if I'm just gonna grab that as a feel because I see it on Instagram or whatever, like who's the athlete that doesn't work for?
Yeah, you're gonna run into issues with that for guys that are already really flat in their bat path. Like the thing for Travis is like he had the really high attack angle, but it was more like a postural issue when he would side bend early and kind of hang back and dump back. So like keeping his hands higher, wanting to turn flatter was something that really helped him. If you have a hitter who's already that way, who potentially struggles to hit the ball in the air, it's like has a bunch of low ball flight as is, like that. That's not going to help them. It's just probably going to feed into the quote unquote flaw a little bit more so.
Interesting. So how would you know, like if you're just at home or whatever, how would you know like where that something like that might help you versus where?
The easiest way is just pay attention to your ball flight. Like what's the ball flight in your hardest hit balls? What part of the field are they going to? And like what's the trajectory and spin? At the end of the day, like you just want to be able to backspin balls to the pull side of the field, like an efficient path where you like are learning how to pull the ball correctly. Like when you catch the ball deep, you should be able to hit it low oppo. That's where all like the old school hitting feel comes from, where the coach are like, hey, I want you to hit everything on the ground low oppo. It's just teaching you how to sequence well, and if assuming you're doing it correctly, teaching you how to sequence well and get the barrel on plane deep to work behind the ball. And then if you maintain your posture and take that same path and catch the ball further out in front, one, you have like a ton of coverage to the zone. That margin for error is much bigger.
Yep.
And then when you're catching it deeper, ball flight's better oppo. When you're catching it further out in front, the ball flight's much better than the ball side. So like place to start is just like looking at your ball flight. At the end of the day, your ball flight is going to tell you everything on your hardest hit balls, your miss hits, where on the field they're going. And then from there, you just need to like essentially evaluate your bat path. Get a blast sensor.
Okay. What do you think are the other takeaways from Travis's like journey?
The biggest takeaway, aside from like the swing change, stuff like that, like the thing that has helped him the most and really helped his training translate into the game is, one, he's like very, very competitive. He loves instant feedback. He loves having a blast sensor on at all times. He loves hitting on hit tracks because he can see how hard he's hitting the ball, the launch angle. He can see his point of contact. He can see his strike zone. He's obviously already had very good swing decisions, but like every swing he took in here, he had a hit track, so he knows exactly where the pitch was. Like that's something that really helped him dial in his swing decisions and his strike zone feedback. But the biggest thing for him, after he gained some bat speed, after he cleaned up some of his mechanics, was just trying to train in really challenging environments and maintain the speed. So like there was a lot of progression with him. Like he had gained a bunch of bat speed in like front toss, a bunch of bat speed off of, like the mini hack, shorter distance stuff off smash balls. But at first it wasn't directly translating to mixed pitch, like off the eye pitch.
Yeah.
So like one of his big focuses in the second off season was literally just you're going to hit mixed pitch. We're going to see how high you can keep your bat speed. Obviously wants you to hit the ball well here, but like the focus on the front end is keep moving the bat really fast, regardless of the result. And over time, he started to learn how to maintain his speed in the challenging environment, start to blend it. He organically started to understand what pitches he could do damage on, what pitches he couldn't.
Yep.
And then fast forward that all the way into the season, you basically look at his profile this year. Swing rates were really, really low. Chase was microscopic. He actually added a little bit more swing and misses here because he was trying to do more damage. But it was basically to the point when he was dialed this year, he was not swinging early in the count unless he could do damage. And he was taking a lot more pitches. And when a guy made a mistake, he punished it.
Yeah.
Because he spent a bunch of time training that in game representative environments.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And it sounds overly simple. But like after the swing changes and things were made, like that was really it. Like his training was, we're going to move fast, try to do damage in challenging environments.
One of the pieces that we hammer on a lot, and it's hard, I think, to get into people's heads, it's like, yeah, just because you have flashed the bat speed in certain areas, it doesn't just show up.
Right.
Like sometimes it does, but that's like, it's far more rare that you're just like, oh yeah, I did the speed trainers. I have the bat speed now. I will go into the batter's box and have the bat speed again. You know, it's like, that's not how it works.
And then you start seeing 98 mile an hour fastballs with
and then
20
you get
inches
defensive.
of carry, and then a sweeper with 18 inches of break. Like, it's just human nature. You don't want to fail. You're going to start to get a little bit more defensive. You're going to slow down, trying to make more contact. So it's like you can gain bat speed in easy training environments, and some people it's going to translate to an extent. But if you really want it to translate to the game, you need to train bat speed in game-like environments.
Yeah.
It's funny how this misconception is across all disciplines. It's not just baseball. You know, it's like, this is a thing in chess also. Like people study engines and like, they're like, so, okay, I got this. I studied I memorized all these lines. I've improved my thing. And they go play over the board. And it's just like, oh yeah, I forgot. Or like, you know, once they actually get in the situation, they forget. And
Yeah.
It's like, cause it's different, you know, like you can be like playing online is not the same as playing over the board. And like the game is so different than just memorizing these patterns. And like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm better at these things.
You can watch NBA guys that shoot like 100 out of 100 from three-point range.
You just watch guys in practice. They're just automatic. The second a guy's close,
An unnamed
hand up.
NBA team that we worked with, you know, when we did the biomech work with them, watching a top 10 point guard, top 10, you know, shoot, it was like, it's close to art as you can watch.
Because you just never missed.
Never. It's like he's going to shoot 5 free throws, 5 long twos, 5 3-pointers, and they got only 5 Jimmer Fredette threes. And I think he missed one of the threes.
Jimmer Fredette
Yeah, just
threes.
deep,
I know what.
you know,
I,
and we're like videoing, and it was just like everything. It's what Birdman, Robbie Tenero, is for this. He mentioned he's a famous hater on all defense, on all players. He's like, that guy's not good defensively. You know, Robbie not being the best defender himself.
I
but
was like,
no, I know, but he's a big hater. And then when the Reds Rule 5 Kyle Holder, when I was there, he's like, he's nasty. he's like, I was like, he is nasty.
That's how you know.
And what Robbie said, I'll never forget. He's like, when the ground balls hit to Kyle, he's like, because he played against him in college too.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, when ground balls hit, it's just like the ball's there, he's there, and it's all one motion. Like the ball speed to his glove to the ball coming out of his hand is like one giant thing. It's like it's one perpetual motion machine. Like as he's getting it, he's moving, and everything is like it's crazy. And Robbie's like, I've never seen it before. It's like his timing is unbelievable. Like Nolan is like that too, Arenado. Where it's just like everything. The runner is always out by a half a step. Everything is smooth. The ball has never sailed. And that's it's just like it's that innate ability to time it is like such a huge thing. With those guys. And so, got to shout out Robbie, but the Holder example is like one of those things where it's like you practice it enough in games, then it becomes this, unconscious thing.
Yeah, that's never going to happen if you're just taking 10 feet away, somebody hitting you like a fungal off a knee. You just have to take a ton of live reps like that. Yeah. Close games.
Why do you think people are afraid of the in-game environment?
This is hard.
Like it's hard to set up.
No, it's just hard training.
It just sucks.
It sucks. Like training as a hitter in game-like environments sucks.
Training at anything sucks.
Yeah. It's just challenging, and like the best training you're gonna get as a hitter is challenging, right? Like obviously, like you need to progress it. Time of the year matters. Like you're not just gonna like walk out to the field and face 90 on the machine for your first swing. You need to progress it, but like in your training, you need to stress test what you're doing in game-like environments. You need to be okay failing a lot. Like with Bazzana, like week, 2 weeks where he wasn't maintaining his bat speed, and then when he did start maintaining his bat speed off the I pitch, mix pitch, like the contact quality was shitty, and he just had to be okay with that for a little bit.
Like we're talking like 1 hit out of 20, 1 hit out of 10, 1 hit out of
a little bit more than that, but
1 hit out of 6.
Yeah, it's just very different than taking BP and you're gonna hit 7 out of 10 balls hard or 7 out of 10 balls out of the yard. Like you might only make contact 5 to 10 times out of a 50 pitch round. You just have to be okay with that, because the focus then was like, you need this to translate to the game. Your bat to ball skills are good, your swing distance are already good, but the power isn't translating. So it's like you just need to be okay failing, trying to maintain the speed first. And then once you start to maintain the speed, like you start to get a little bit more calibrated, and then you learn how to really like translate the swing adjustments with the speed to make quality contact.
Yeah, can you get in a safe environment where it doesn't go on Baseball Reference? You're not evaluated by it.
Sure.
Instructional league and all these other things. That's the value of these things. Recent call up, greatest player in the world, Rhys Hines, Cincinnati Reds.
Greatest player in the world.
For this week, anyway, man. I don't know if you've seen him. I mean, it's the dumb shoes. He should have been in the home run derby. So, Rhys was with the Reds as his instructional league, and defensively, he can be limited in some areas, right? So he's playing third in instructs, trying to keep him in the infield. He's an outfielder now, but there's a slow roller hit up the line. We're playing the Guardians, and he barehands it and throws this ball, dude, like throws it into Peoria. Like this ball is like just sailed, run score in an instructional league game, and there's a coach, near me, and the pitching coach. He's like, "Oh my, come on, Rhys, just eat it." Whatever. Like, there's no chance he gets the runner. Rhys is an 80 arm, but it's like, this is not going to happen. And instead, we give up runs or whatever. And I had to remind the coach, I'm like, no, that's why Rhys is here. Like, that's why he's playing third, is like, everyone thinks he can't play. Everybody, whatever, but they're having him here. He needs to do that. Like, because that is a play a good third baseman makes in the big leagues. So for him to fail there is great, because, like, he needs to keep failing like that.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of instructional league, man. Yeah, if it's A-ball, maybe we don't really want that. Maybe we want to win the game. But even in the minor leagues, it's kind of a trade-off. But to this instructional league, he needs to do that every time. He needs to throw that ball over the fence 50 times before he figures out how to get it on target. Coach is like, oh, that's true. I said, like, we don't let the coaches, like, when guys throw 6 sliders in a row and walk the guy like that, we know that that's part of our in the instructional league and pitching. That's normal.
Yep.
Same as it is for Rhys throwing the ball over the fence. Like, he needs to do that. And he's like, oh, no, I get it. But it's just hard. Like, it's like you got to have a safe environment where the player feels okay about doing that and not judged.
Yeah.
And it sucks for the player because no one wants to fail at any time.
Well, it's harder on the youth side, too. Like no one needs that feedback or that, like, environment, like, more than, like, 10, 11, 12-year-olds who, like, are interested in doing the thing. But it's like the most psychologically difficult thing to manage is just, like, watching them go through it. And not being like a 21-year-old, it's just like,
today I'm going to show up to practice. It's going to be terrible, and I'm going to lose a lot.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
That's
It's like, that's not easy. It's not easy. Bazzana has the innate ability to, he loves that kind of stuff. And the best players all do. They all do. And Tom Brady talks about it all the time, about difficult practice. They all talk about it in their different ways, but it's just like, that's how
that doesn't mean he wasn't pissed off and frustrated damn near every day training because he's so damn competitive. But like, he knew how valuable that was for him. You ask him now, he'll tell you how much that helped him, how much it helped him translate like the actual power into the season this year. It's just like, you just maintained your speed. You learned how to maintain your speed and hit in challenging environments, and like probably harder than game-like environments. In a lot of cases, like dark in the gym at times, like shitty baseballs. He's swinging like a shitty DeMarini comp on the machine. It's like Marge Ferrer is already small, and he didn't want to switch to a metal bat. He didn't want to switch to like nicer wood. It's like, this is what I've been training with. This is what I want to see my results with. Like, I don't care that I'm going to fail in here. I know I'm going to fail because it's going to help me be more productive in games. It's just incredibly rare for anybody to think about it that way. No matter how many times you tell him, like, training like that sucks. It's frustrating. It's hard. And he's just aware enough to understand how much it's really going to help him. That's why he's great.
That's why I've talked to tons of coaches here, and you've seen me. It's like, when's the last time you've been coached? Do you remember how hard it is, and how bad the average coach is part of it? But then it's also like, go play golf. Go play Top Tracer. Like, do you remember how really hard it is to be good at something? It's like, oh no. And it's not like a joke. It's like, it's true. It's good. It's good to go out there and do something you've never done, or, and try to be good at it. Whether it's like play baseball again, play golf, play chess. Just like, man, acquiring skill sucks. You forget how bad it is sometimes as coach, So it's good to stay connected to that. Automated balls and strikes. How's it going?
Automated balls and strikes.
How in AAA?
It is in AAA. It is in AAA, but it's rumored to be coming to the big leagues soon.
Yeah, I think they're in AAA. They're going to switch to the challenge system in the second half of this year.
Well, because there's both systems, right?
Right.
There's the
straight automated.
The umpire just voice is the mouth of the machine, right?
Yep, no arguments.
No arguments.
That was in AAA, the challenge system right now?
No, that was the fall.
Yes.
And I think the challenge system was like halfway through. I don't know. This is great podcast. We don't know anything. But anyway, about
but we do know
the challenge. The challenge system is the proposed final thing that they want to do.
It's the one that everybody likes.
Yeah, hates the least.
Hates the least.
Yeah,
hates the least.
Yeah. The problem though,
everybody likes the current system the most.
Yeah, the no automated balls. Yeah. But some of the umpires are really testing the limits of people's desire.
Yeah. Well, that's like why do people like it the most when?
I think tradition is such a big part of the game. And the robots are, Harry Pavlidis, of Baseball Prospectus, really put it well years and years and years ago when talking about this. Is a human umpire, if the catcher doesn't do anything weird, and he sets up middle, and the pitcher's throwing middle, a human umpire calls that a strike 100% of the time. Now, you do see some pitches thrown down the middle that are called balls, but it's because the catcher set up really weird. Whatever. So that doesn't count. But Harry's point is that a machine will not call that pitch a strike 100% of the time. Sometimes it will screw up in a weird way, and that really defies a human expectation of baseball.
Yeah.
Right. And as someone was at the Reds, and we had the first rollout of the AutoZone in the Florida State League, it was very difficult for our players to adjust to, especially the pitchers, because balls like a millimeter outside were being called balls, but pitches that bounce were called strikes because that's the actual strike zone.
Mm-hmm.
And this is tough because I watched a bunch of our hitters, including Reese Hines, they're taking pitches that are clear balls and it's good for them, but it's but at the next level that will be a strike, and that was tough. So it has to be uniform.
Yeah.
And that's what they're going to with the challenge system. And I support it. I think it's good. And I think the players will ultimately like it as well, to have that.
But in the rollouts, what did you see as the most specific behavioral adaptation or game theory adaptation of how you'd either have to pitch or hit relative to what the machine's gonna do?
So many high fastballs were called strikes that would never be called strikes now. There's so many fastballs at the top of the zone that clip the top of the zone that hitters were backing up on, or just textbook strikes, and that was really tough. So then our guys were just going high heaters and really slow curveballs that were bouncing. That's, it's not good.
Yeah, seems like it would make it harder to hit.
That's the thing.
Yeah, but then walk rates went up too. So that was bad for all. And then
because you weren't getting as much east-west.
Yeah, his swing rates just went down. Hitters are just like, whatever. And so then in the second
I'm just not swinging.
yeah, and in the second half, like they changed it so that the zone compressed and then went wider, and that was much better. Like that was like, okay, this looks like baseball. Like a slider that's on the black gets called a strike. That's fine. Everyone can be okay with that. And then the fastball at the top of the zone that like clips the top of the zone is now called a ball. It's like that's good. Like that's where we should.
Oh, so it actually changed the
They did, yeah. The committee,
the textbook strike zone is not the in-game strike zone.
correct. It all kind of changed to like the more like the blob where it's like these are the probability of called strikes. It kind of merged to like where the humans call strikes, which I think is much better. It's like players don't care what's written in the book. Like they care how the human umpires have called the zone their entire life.
Yeah.
And so now that's where it's at, which is good. It's very good, in fact. So I'm happy.
So then what? People are just tied into tradition. What is the benefit of doing all this? Like if people are like, this is a worse option.
Yeah. Right. I mean, like Derek Jeter famously, he would only get mad at the umpires when the zone was inconsistent. You know, call any zone you like, but like it's got to go both ways. I mean, you hear that all the time, right? It's like both ways on, right? Both ways blue.
Yep.
Like, and that's all they want. And like that's what a robo zone offers. It's just how do you capture the human element of how the strike zone's actually been called compared to what's written, because what's written is not what's called. You know, so like we need to go by that tradition, which is where we're going, and it's good. You know, it's all this testing in the minor leagues is getting us to a point of a consistent strike zone, which will be a better product. You know, because fans don't like seeing it either. Twitter comments about like the terrible umpires. You know, and the best umpire in the league is now not an umpire due to the sports betting scandal that he's involved in, apparently.
It's wild.
You know, so it's like fans want a consistent product, and that's ultimately yes. Is this better for the game and the players? Yeah. I don't pretend to know what Major League Baseball wants. But
isn't the sports gambling like the other lever? Like that an automated ball and strike zone just eliminates the human umpiring leveraged by organized crime.
Yeah, I never thought of that. That's true. That is a good point. Yeah, it does for sure. And I mean, just the league wants to make the product good, you know, and they want fans to be happy with the product. Yeah, which NBA has done. And people are like, oh, well, you can't change this or this or this. It's like the NBA has changed so many crazy rules to make the product more watchable.
Like what?
Football's done.
Like you just can't camp in the restricted zone and like, you know, play zone basically and just like lock up and then like the games are like 62-65. Like no one wants to see that. They want to see offense and whatever. And so as many people complain about how hard it is to play defense. Now they changed that in the playoffs this year. If you watch the NBA playoffs, like Haralabos and those guys were talking about like prison ball. You are allowed to like play way hands-on defense in the playoffs. And the fans are like, this is sick. This is way better. Because they don't like the fans didn't like shooters like going up and initiating contact and getting free fouls. So they stopped that. So it's like, okay, but like it's always give and take, right? Yeah. Like they don't want to actually watch the Wisconsin versus Virginia college basketball where it's like 38-50. Like no one wants to see that. No one wants to see that. So then they had a ton of shooting and then fouls that helped the offense, and now they went too far and they're down again. And we'll see the same thing in baseball. Ultimately, what we got to be okay with and what we have to always remember is that fans matter the most. You know, and you can't deny that the pitch clock, for as much as that I was concerned about injury and anything else, you know, I took my two kids to an Everett Aqua Sox game. They were super aggressive about the pitch clock. I was like, they're going to watch one inning and they're going to go to the bounce house. Shout out to the Aqua Sox, do an awesome job with the family stuff.
It's a great bounce house.
It's a great experience. They're going to just sit in the bounce houses and come back for the seventh inning stretch. They went out, they came back, and they watched the entire game. Game was 2 hours, 5 minutes, and they watched the entire game, and it was super engaging. And it's like, okay, that's anecdote, but like, my kids never want to watch a whole baseball game. To now, I was even telling them, I'm like, you can go. Like, they close the bounce houses in the seventh inning.
That's right. Get out of here.
If you want to go, like, you gotta go there. No, we're watching. I was like, that's fine, you know? So it's just all tied into a better product. And the pitch clock has done that. And I think the Robo Zone is going to do that too. And that's their goal, you know? And I think ultimately the players will like it too. But like more importantly, the fans deserve a consistent product.
It seems pretty obvious from the like polling that is, or like the, you know, fan research or whatever, that like what fans want the most is like singles and doubles and a lot of stolen bases and just like movement. Yep. Because, and this was a fact that actually shocked me, but at the time that they made the pitch clock change, an NFL game and an MLB game took roughly the same amount of time, and it had loosely the same amount of active time versus inactive time. Yep. It's just that the NFL was like, well, one, like people were hitting each other on every play. So, that's stimulating to the American psyche.
That's right.
But second is, you line up and then something is guaranteed to happen. Somebody runs a route, somebody does a pass, somebody does a whatever, but everybody's running around. Then you come back and regroup, which is not true in baseball. It's like, oh, he threw a ball. It's like, well, yeah, that's leverage the count in a certain way that makes offense more likely. And, a knowledgeable baseball fan can see that and be engaged with it. But it's really boring for, 9-year-olds when the competing offer is a bounce house, or Netflix or whatever, So I guess to that point, Stokey, do you think there's any shot that this helps contact, or is this does it have to be multiple moves in order to drive the
Yeah, I think to an extent it'll help. The thing that's concerning is if they go by the regulation rule book, like he was saying, where the pitch a millimeter at the top is a strike.
Yeah.
That's just going to cause problems with hitters because it's already hard enough to hit a high fastball. The league's adjusted a little bit. But if that pitch is a millimeter just above the zone, millimeter is just clipping it, is going to be called a strike. At some point, pitchers are going to get to the point where they can just drop a changeup or a breaking ball at the top of the zone. And yeah, it's going to run some risk for them missing a little bit lower and hanging it, and it's going to get hammered. But you find a pitcher, you can throw the fastball at the top and then drop a big breaking ball at the top. I don't think a hitter has a chance ever. So I do think it'll be valuable if they roll it out where the top north-south is a little bit smaller, east-west a little bit bigger. I think that makes sense, and I think it's fair.
Yeah.
I think players would be okay with it. But yeah, that's my initial concern with it, is at some point some guy is just going to get good at throwing the high fastball with a big 12-6 at the top that's just clipping it, and it's impossible to cover both.
Yeah. Do you think, if it ends up being the challenge system, right, that's not an automatic strike zone. You still have the umpire, and then you just challenge it, right? Yeah. But the effect is sort of to train the umpires into a more consistent and homogeneous process,
which I think will be good.
Yeah, it seems like it would be a net positive. The umpires are already much better from having gotten the feedback and scorecards and whatever, and it seems like the ability to publicly embarrass them by being overturned would yield greater accuracy.
Shout out at umpire scorecards on Twitter.
Shout out.
Good follow.
Shout out.
Great
but
follow.
they do that internally too.
Yeah.
But
I think fans like the framing, the art of catching and framing, and that being there. I think it's a big part of the game. They can tell when Austin Hedges is catching compared to a Butcher.
Sure.
There is a beauty in that too, and I don't think that should go away. Tennis is Hawkeye. It's the original Hawkeye application is tennis. And that's still called by a referee. There's still a line judge.
Yeah.
Even though they can do it, and the tennis players challenged. So that's the future system that's coming, I think.
Yeah.
And in tennis, everyone is cool with it. But then why doesn't Hawkeye call all of them? It's because fans don't actually like that much.
Do you think there's a way though to if you do want to promote more offense, you just start shrinking the zone a little bit, so that you find the contact optimized zone. So you shave a couple centimeters off the top, some off the sides, get it. Do you think that, and then train these guys on the new thing? But you think that's coming? If the pitcher hitter war does not change anytime soon?
Yeah, if offense doesn't get better and pitchers just continue to dominate,
yeah,
I would think it's gonna start to go in that direction.
Yeah.
The thing that would be bad about that is getting too small to the point where it's hurting pitchers too much. Much as I don't want to say that out loud, right? It's the average miss distance is a foot,
Yeah.
Plate is 17 inches wide. It's you make the zone 15. It's going to get to the point where the scale is going to tip too far towards hitters.
Yeah.
Which I'm down, but that's not a good product. That's not exactly what you're going for.
It's a bad fan experience.
Yes.
That's the other thing.
That's not. It's not a win.
But they want walks.
They don't want walks. They want swing and miss.
And that's the thing.
Or they want swing and hit.
They don't mind swing and miss either, but it's just can't be walks and swing and miss and no balls.
Yeah.
They strike us in love, but they don't only strike. They don't like the three true trout.
Ideal game is 5-3, 9 hits, couple errors. Yeah, 9 hits, 7 hits.
Shifts is a big part of that.
Yeah.
which is a good move. But the problem is, I've always maintained, is that the defenders are too good in the game today. They're crazy. Like, you need to, we want some more stolen bases. It's the most exciting play in baseball is a triple, and stolen bases are tied to that, of course, just generally.
Yeah.
First to third, any of those, like, fans love that stuff. It's always consistently rated as like the best, and I agree. It's the problem is that every catcher is like 1-9 to second. Like, they're all so good now compared to like 40 years ago. If you watch baseball, the defenders are like, dude, like, this is insane how bad these defenders are compared to average. It wasn't that long ago that it was okay to put like Jeremy Giambi in the outfield and just like complete ridiculous defenders. And today it's like completely unacceptable to have that bad at defenders, out there. It's nuts to see how like the worst defender today compared to the worst defender like 30 years ago is like, it's unbelievable. And that's why it stands out. My favorite comparison is Brad Ausmus catching back then. It's like, dude, that guy could catch today, like how good he was back then. And there's no surprise that everyone was like, this guy's the best catcher ever. And then when you watch, it's like, oh, hey, he's pretty good. Like, he's average today. And then you watch his competition, you're like, oh my God, there's a reason, pitchers. And then of course the GOAT shortstop, Adam Everett. Just watch.
Adam Everett,
unbelievable,
not Ozzie Smith.
First time. Adam Everett got MVP votes.
You can't be GOAT for your time period.
Everett's
that's a go for you.
Yeah. I was just saying, Adam, he might be the best shortstop. There was that
greatest of your time period.
He hit like 260 one year and got MVP votes. Like that.
Of course he did.
Like,
he was great.
MVP votes where it's just like, oh my God, he was like almost an average hitter.
I mean, I think Adam Everett with hitting 260, even an empty 260, is like.
Oh, it was an empty 260.
Oh yeah, of course. But it's like that probably is.
Like, he led the league in triples.
There probably isn't an MVP or pretty close.
100%. But that's just like, that's how like good he was. And fans love that kind of stuff. But the problem is like every shortstop is so good now. Like all the defenders are so good. And that makes it tough to have singles and doubles just by the virtue of how it is.
Well, it's not going to get any easier.
You can't make the field dimensions any different in that regard. Like, you can make the outfield larger, but the infield you can't. Just given the rules.
You can make the outfield. Yeah, you can make the outfield larger.
Yeah, I mean, Coors does it and whatever. I'm saying the infield can't be any different.
What if you went? Hear me out. Here we go. What if you go automated strike zone? Increase the barrel size of the bats and bigger outfields.
Many people are saying that a larger bat is being tested. Potentially.
But I'm saying like that'd be kind of gas, right? Like if you were really trying to maximize doubles and triples, now you would have to immediately undertake like many like renovation projects in the hundreds of millions of dollars for every stadium.
But I think fans like variety. It doesn't have to be all the stadiums, just some of them.
I don't know. I don't think anybody likes left field in Baltimore getting pushed back.
Oh yeah,
I don't think anybody likes that.
That's true. But I mean, it was a bandbox, so they deserve it.
Yeah.
For as long as it's been.
Just keep going. Just keep pushing it back.
First
380 to left field.
Where's the Green Monster going to go with this, by the way? Having been to Fenway for the first time.
I'm just saying, knock it down.
30 feet taller.
Yeah,
make Fenway look like.
Yeah, they can't push it back.
You've been to
They just got to go up. Yeah.
On the other side of the Monster is a highway. Well, it's just there's nowhere to.
It's not a highway. It's a street.
It's like a big park.
I'm just saying, if you could replace Fenway Park with Pomona Pitzer Stadium, that's what you want.
Pepperdine.
No. Have you seen Pomona's field?
Yeah.
Pomona's field is a straight line. It's a fence that borders a road that goes like cat a corner, or at least it was, however many years ago.
They just got a net over there, or what?
No, it goes. The dimensions are like from right to left. It's like 280, 310, 360, 385, like 450. It's just a straight shot out there. They didn't at any point in time want to
just in a two-single,
just
like,
cut it off. They were like, "No, we'll just fence the whole thing." So it's pretty sick.
You've been Azusa Pacific, right? Imagine that, but like angled.
Yeah.
Where Azusa Pacific is like 160 to right or whatever ridiculous it is. I mean, not really. But
Yeah.
But it's like, you just hit Little League home runs down.
I love it.
Down the left field line.
Ultimately, where I've come to on all this, and
I'm just saying, big fields.
Ultimately, like,
down line, big to the middle.
we laughed too
Polo
much
ground?
about
Yeah. Polo grounds for sure.
about the fans. They're like, oh, it's like this is bad for the. It's like, dude, all that matters is that the fans enjoy the product. Like, I finally come around to that.
That is the only thing that matters.
Right, but if you're like some self-righteous coach or what you like, it's like, and that was me for a long time.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's like what really matters is that the fans enjoy the product. And we can complain about it, but every successful sports league has done this already. Like NBA has banned camping in the restricted zone and just stupid defenses.
Yeah.
NFL is no more the jam within 5 yards. All this other stuff, like to encourage more offense. Just can't crush quarterbacks anymore and whatever.
They're changing the kickoff rule going on this year too.
Changing the kickoff rule. It's like every sport. It's like, oh, how are you going to ban this shift? It's like the NBA banned defense in this area. That's the same thing as the shift. It's like we got to be okay as baseball. It's like we got to make the products more attractive to the people that watch it these days. And the NFL has done a heck of a job of that over the last 20 years. And they, as a result, that is one of many reasons the NFL is dominating, but they've done a good job of that.
Yeah. It is true. I mean, it's an eyeball sport. I mean, look at the difference in the WNBA thing. It's like Caitlin Clark shows up, all the eyeballs are on the league. Like, things change materially inside of the league. Now there's a whole other like set of things, but it's just like the eyeballs matter. Like, and if we're losing them to other places, like if baseball, the sport, is losing it to other places, we got to figure out ways to retain that. What's been interesting, though, is to see Major League Baseball in quote unquote decline over, 10 to 15 years or whatever. Take that with whatever dubious grains of salt you'd like. But college baseball is crushing it and will likely continue to crush it if MLB restricts the farm systems, because they went, from unlimited or whatever to 200 to 180 to 165 now. And like, if they keep going on that trajectory, then pretty soon, like, high school players will be undraftable.
Yep. Unless you're Max Clark, Connor Griffin. You got to be like the top.
Yeah, you have to be the best person. But
guys will stay in college an extra year. It'll just make it all better.
It is better for everybody. It's better for the players. It's better for the sport. College baseball becomes more attractive, which is good for everybody. College football, for example, like the NFL directly benefits from college football being so good.
Of course. I mean, imagine.
And college football benefits from the NFL being, right? It's good for everyone.
Imagine the first overall high school recruit just going straight to the Dallas Cowboys or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Like that first mini camp, we get annihilated.
Yeah. You got to play against James Harrison. No, thank you.
That's right.
It's just yeah, I'm good, man.
That's right. Oh, you think you're a good linebacker?
Yeah, 19-year-old.
Please tackle Vernon Davis,
Ed Reed,
yeah,
and Ray Lewis. It's like, this is a workplace hazard. This isn't about being bad at my sport.
Right.
So, yeah, but I think it is good. Like, for all the complaining about about MLB, it's like the revenues don't indicate it. They're doing very well compared to the other sports. Just NFL is the only thing that's dominating, but that is what it is.
Yeah.
But compared to the other sports, MLB is doing quite good.
Yeah, they're doing great. They're doing great.